worked out really well for him. Just everything kind of lined up well against Zale's quote unquote more
Yeah,
perfect
he
hand.
drew what he needed right in time. He drew into the whirlwind. Well, whirlwind was not necessary at the end, but he drew into basically both combos without the second patron combo.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right
So
on time. That's what you need to win.
so
And you're gonna only get that about a quarter of the time,
mhm.
first half of the theory deck, which it was the case.
Yeah, so our next match is going to be Kolento versus Kucha. Kucha, he's a player from the team Hellraisers, and that's a Russian-based team that's been doing really well in Starter Ladder recently. In fact, out of the 32 players, or rather the 16 players who qualified for Star Ladder Season 1, three of them were from the team Hellraisers, and all three of them made it to the round of eight. One of the players in the round of eight, he made it to the finals, Staducci, but two of the other
Oh,
players will be playing today. We're going to have Kucha, who's going to be first off against Kolento, and we're also going to have Lostov, who finished second in this tournament, in the very first start off kickoff season of this tournament. So definitely a really great team to watch out for, even though they're not as well known in the traditional Western scene. And it's even possible that all three Hellraisers players will be at the finals, and that'd be pretty amazing if you have a final that only consists of six
oh
players.
yeah, still possible.
Yeah, half the players are from one team. That's pretty amazing, right?
That would be. Are they all qualified or?
Yeah, so
Uh,
so two of them qualified, and the third,
mhm.
Lostov, was invited based off of his second place finish last season, and
All right,
he qualified for the last season. So you could argue that all three players qualified.
cool.
Yeah.
Although he's obviously going against one of the strongest player from Cloud9, Kolento.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And let's say hypothetically that Kucha defeats Kolento, then he'll have to
Mhm.
go off against Cypher. And Cypher has been on a pretty hot streak recently. He's qualified for a lot of tournaments. He finished high. He finished in the top 15 in Hearthstone World Championship points in Europe. Not only that, but he
Mhm.
qualified for Gfinity and he qualified for Star Ladder.
Yep. He also got second on Vulcan Deck Masters.
Ah, true, true. Unfortunately, he was
Yep.
defeated by Trump, but still a pretty
Yeah.
impressive result.
Very impressive. Yeah, just all out of nowhere, these new players are rising and battling against amazing players. So we have a Hunter, Druid, and Rogue. Am I right
Whoa!
on that? I can't see the.
What's that
Oh wait,
class? Masan, what is that class right there?
I don't know. What is that? What is that? Am I seeing that right?
So it's like there's poison daggers. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna go off a limb
Uh-huh.
and I'm gonna say that's a rogue, which is pretty
Yes.
exciting. Rogue was pretty common before TGT, but after TGT,
Uh-huh.
it's pretty much become extinct. And even Shaman has become more popular than the rogue class in tournaments, at least. So in the BlizzCon qualifiers across like every region, across the EU
Mhm.
region, the American region, China, Korea, Taiwan, Australia, SEA, Japan, there was only one shaman deck that made it to the next stage, but there were no rogue decks. Rogue was not represented at all of the players who could possibly bring rogue, of the players who made it to the next stage of the regionals BlizzCon
It's
qualifiers.
kind of interesting because the Rogue is traditionally strong against patrons, and now the Druid has become popular, but then Druid started taking out Lothama and Harrison Jones, which was good against the Rogue. So the Rogue statistically should be slightly favored against the Druid, as far as I know. So the Rogue should not be that bad of tournament class. On letter, maybe it's pretty bad, but
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a lot of the other classes, they got updates. Druid, I think, is definitely stronger with the Darnassus Aspirant. Meanwhile, Rogue, it
hmm
just didn't get anything. None of the cards are
no, they
actually
didn't.
useful in the traditional oil Rogue. And not only that, but there's not really like the bits and pieces of other Rogue decks are there. Like Pyrogue could be a thing, Aggro Rogue could be a thing, but it's just barely not enough.
I actually seen Zixo getting to top 20 legend on North American server with the aggro pirate rogue, which was pretty impressive early on
Yes.
today.
But 6-0 also hit number one, ranked number one legend while he was drunk with Patron Warrior. So that guy,
Very true.
That guy could
All
do
right, we
anything.
have match going on, so let's get to it.
So I would have to say one of these hands is a lot better than the other.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I see Savannah High Main, which is amazing against Druids. I also see Freezing Trap, which is also amazing versus Druid.
Well, I was gonna say more of the fact that Kucha is gonna curve out perfectly, and meanwhile Kolento he pretty much has no play until turn 4.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so turn 4 is already there, and turn 5 will also already be there. So,
Yeah. Actually, I was.
oh, and
He could have swiped if he really, really wanted.
even
He
a
also
wall
has an
growth.
Innervate now to play lower or war if he wants to. But
Mhm.
I'll stick with a Druidical in my opinion.
Yeah, it seems like the like this Ancient of War can get silenced or it can get Hunter's marked as
Hmm.
far as you know, and maybe you want to
Yeah,
bait out the Druid of the Claw a bit more. Also,
yeah.
it
Perhaps you can use the bait out the owl with a
yeah,
Druid Claw taunt.
it's also it gives you more flexibility in the later turns. Um, Also, like it's not necessarily that no high main will be coming up on the next turn at least. So it's not like
Hmm.
you have a high main to deal with, and the Druid of the Claw deals perfectly with this Misha anyway. I believe
Oh yeah.
this Druid of the Claw will get Abusive Sergeant did though. It's still fine.
Hmm. At least only 1 or 2 damage. I believe he'll also play Haunted Keeper second one, and then he, yeah, he only has 2 damage on field, which isn't that particularly amazing against the Druid. Well, then again, he also has a Freezing Trap and Savannah coming up pretty soon, so it's gonna be pretty well.
Yeah. So now Kolento he has the choice of Ancient of War or Ancient of Lore. I
What
actually
did you do personally?
I wouldn't mind the Ancient of Lore that much. Obviously, the obvious play is the Ancient of War to like put up a wall, but Ancient of Lore gives you more possibilities, and also this
Hmm.
board isn't threatening enough that you want to necessarily prevent this 4 damage.
Oh
But
yeah, that's what I was gonna mention as well. The chance of you being silenced or the counter smart mainly when your opponent has 2 creepers is the chance may not be that high, but that really is advantage. So
yeah, it's also possible though that Kolento researched a bit into Kucha's deck lists, and he realized this guy is playing more of like a hybrid hunter, and there's not
mhm.
really much of a possibility that he's running the that he's running the hunter's mark.
Hmm.
This works out well for Kolento though. With this line of play, because he chose to play Ancient of War instead of Ancient of Lore, he essentially saved himself 4 damage to the face.
Oh yeah. He can
And
also go for, well,
wow,
theoretically could have attacked into Savannah and heal, but Dr. Boom is just too great not to play.
exactly. And wow, look at this, another Savannah High main. So both
Wow.
players are actually getting kind of dream hands.
Uh-huh.
Double Savannah High main into 5 and 6. Meanwhile, Clento got a wall growth early on. He innovated out to some really great play. So it's going to be these two decks fighting at full strength, which is something that I'm always really glad to see. Another thing to consider,
Although at
though,
this point, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, like, you might not play the Savannah High main here because
Hmm.
something like this is just so strong. And it also
Oh
gives
yeah.
you the opportunity to bust through that Ancient of War without necessarily popping your creepers, which
Mhm.
leaves you too open to a swipe play.
You will almost never get a 4 minion on these two doggies. It rarely comes by, and he's having it now. So wow, not even using 7
That's a little surprising. Ooh, going for the full clear.
Oh,
Yeah, I guess.
interesting.
Huh. Yeah, it's
I guess he
definitely
was
very
afraid
interesting.
of Boombots, but then now he's really vulnerable to swipes. So uh,
Yeah. I think
now swipe face
oh wow.
×2.
Really aggressive. I think basically
Wow.
Kucho was a bit afraid of the combo, but not
Uh-huh.
only that, he looked at his hand and he saw that he had a Savannah high main and not, for example, a kill command. So I think in his
Oh
mind,
yeah.
he probably wanted to play the longer game, but unfortunately, that's not what Kolento wants to play.
No, not at all. He's gonna have to also use a busy surgeon, just get the things on board. And things aren't looking great for Kucha right now.
Well, 1 damage to Jaime, and at least that was
Oh yeah, that
the
was
best possible
best.
hit. That was a 1 in 12 right there.
Now Kolento just needs to draw into any piece of combo, and with him 1 minute surviving on the board, it's just gonna be easiest way. Oh, he can even clear the 7 Jaime and leaves the 2/2s on board, which is not the best. Well, which doesn't even compete against Ancient Lore. So he's forced to freezing trap on Ancient Lore. When Druid has 23 health and you're running out of cards. This is really looking grim for Kucha right now.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Or is it?
I think if it were any other class, I would say yeah, it's looking grim. But Hunter can do Hunter things, and not only that, but Kolento actually doesn't have an amazing play here. He can't actually deal with this board at all.
No. Because of freezing trap, it prevents it. And if he goes for a not heal but the draw, the Hunter can actually theoretically draw into quick shot into kill command, and that will be lethal from 17 health, which he decides to draw. Wow, I'm actually a little surprised about that.
Yeah, well, with the draw, he can potentially draw into lethal. Like if Kucha doesn't clear,
since Hunter is forced to clear the board, so it totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's just the advantage that you have when you're the player who's threatening lethal. You're the aggressive player, and Kolento has certainly turned it up. So unless this is a full board clear, or at least unless this Ancient of Lore dies, we're gonna see Kolento take the first game.
Oh yeah, you will definitely have to kill that. He's 1 damage off lethal, and when Druid is drawing, you know that he's drawing for a combo. Yeah. He's looking for those combo pieces.
Yeah.
And even without it, like unless full clear.
Yeah, it's full clear because yeah, you have the Keeper of the Grove anyway, right?
And you're really reluctant to do that when Druid has a 15 health.
Yeah, I don't.
Decides to go for face, and that will be unfortunately be the game.
Okay, so yeah, it's I guess a little strange. I mean, I guess he's seen double swipe, so it's less likely that Kolento has this, the Force of Nature. But I think this was the correct play from Kucha. He had to go for the winning play.
Oh yeah. The reason I might consider healing over drawing, going back a few turns, is that again you are the threatening person. You're forcing lethal next couple of turns. So even if you don't draw into it, your opponent already played with 7 Jaime, so you know that your opponent is less likely to have threats. Very less likely, unless the Hunter runs Dr. Boom, which we haven't seen yet. With the Leopardom, it's less likely. However, we do not know that 100%. It's just that Hunter is always forced to trade. So if Kolento healed himself up to 20 health, it still have a lore, still have the 2/3 on board. He can still kill your opponent if it draws the Force of Nature. And yeah, well, regardless, the Kolento did take him winning. So it was just great showing from Kolento and forcing your opponent into basically doing nothing and just killing himself.
All right, so next match is going to be Secret Paladin against Rogue. It's a matchup that we haven't really seen too much these days, since Rogue is pretty much non-existent, and Paladin is kind of one of the newer decks.
I believe this is the worst possible matchup for Rogue. Because Rogue is decent against Patron Warrior Rogue. I guess the Druid just won the game, so... I guess he was sure that Kolento was going to bring Patron.
Yeah. I mean, one of the problems you do have is you might take too much blowback from just hitting the minions with the Divine Shields, right? Or just hanging them all down.
That's really limiting factor of a Rogue, that they don't have enough heals. They don't have enough... I wouldn't say board presence. Board presence early game, I suppose. They have a lot of removals, but not the presence early on. And late game, they have great presence on 4-drop line, but not so much with their 5s, not so much with their 7. They have a lot of draws and removals.
Yeah. And not only that, but Kucha, he doesn't have the coin. He
Mhm.
doesn't have a backstab, so it'll be like Kucha's even worse position.
Depends on what he draws on turn 3, but until he draws into... Yeah, it looks like he'll be... Would you even go for the hero power or just go for SS7 agent? This is kind of awkward spot.
Well, the other thing is, do you even attack this Argent Squire? It's the age-old question. This is actually really threatening here.
Yeah.
Like you deal with like all these situations all the time where like, do I attack the Squire? If it's avenged, then I'm really screwed. But if it's not avenged, then like at least I kill off this 1/1. Like if it's competitive spirit, then it's even worse for me. But this is again, Kolento is just he's gonna take this game away. Like it seems to be nothing stopping him.
Yeah,
Unless
in his mind, he thought he could just go for StarSeries Deccan and SS7 agent and kill the 5/5, but that's not happening due to the Kolento having Super Champion to remove the 3/3.
He doesn't even have a dagger up so that his South Sea Deccan can charge right now.
No, not even. So what can you really do at this point? Just go for SS7 agent and deal 2 damage to 5/5, I suppose. Then that's not even enough. You're gonna have to, unless you draw into something, you're gonna have to face it that.
I don't know.
Since the Kolento is obviously gonna remove the 3/3.
Feels bad, man. I was gonna say, like, there's the possibility that Kolento could just run out of gas, but it doesn't look like it right now. I think the cards in Kucha's hand right now are kind of like the 4 worst cards you could have. They're just so slow.
Yes, they're so slow. And Kucha already down to half health, and he does have a preparation, which, hey, actually that allows him to trigger a combo and trade a South Sea Deccan along to Sacred Keeper.
So if he Azure Drakes and he draws either a swipe or an eviscerate, that could be pretty huge.
That would be huge if he. But would you want to go for that chance? I think I'd rather just go for preparation and go for an oil, and you know that you're going to be killing Sacred Keeper as long as you attack with the rogue first.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so Noble Sacrifice is down.
Yeah, otherwise it's just too much. You're taking too much of a chance. You're only saving Grace. It will be eviscerate, basically.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You have a 5/4 Divine shielded mini bot.
Oh, no. At least it went to 5/4 Divine Shield. It did not make the Sacred Keeper. It's 10 attack minion that you can't kill this turn. But still, you're looking at the lethal next turn. So what do you do here? You're forced to draw into Azure Drake here, at least.
And what can you even draw here?
Backstab, which he did not draw. So he has to go into
Doomsayer.
Doomsayer, yes, that's
Just
the only.
This one time. No.
Wow, that was very quick. Kolento taking game number 1 and 2 very convincingly. And now he only has a Patron Warrior left over, which is going to be great against Hunter, which is going to be pretty good against the Druid. Not so much, perhaps not so much against the Rogue.
Yeah.
So which class would the Kucha bring up here? Do you want to bring Rogue to try to have the best chance against Patrons, or do you want to start with the slow and more difficult class like Hunter?
I always find that when players bring like a class that's not too popular, for example, Rogue in this metagame or mid-range Shaman in Blackrock Mountain, they tend to kind of like want to prove to the audience that this was a correct choice, and that like so they'll queue up their weakest, quote unquote, weakest deck yet again. But instead, Kucha will be bringing up the Druid.
I actually like that he has a Lothab in this deck as well. A lot of people taking out the Lothab instead of they will have a second Azure Drake in Druid deck. And Kucha did not start with a Wild Growth nor Aspirant, which is a little unfortunate against Warriors. Well, Aspirant would not too much of a factor if a Warrior start with a Fiery War Axe, but Innervate or Wild Growth is something you're really looking forward to going against a Warrior or pretty much any other classes.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Kolento, this is a pretty good hand. I'm actually really surprised that Kolento pitched away the Fired War Axe. It seems to be a really good card against the Aspirants and
Mhm.
against Piloted Shredders, which are two of the first minions that you're likely to face off against Warrior. Do you have any insight
Since
on
you're
that,
going
Musan?
first, huh? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you have any insight on it?
Since you're going first, I guess you're more looking forward to against the Druid patrons. Basically, the Deathbite patron Inner Rage is the winning combo against the Druid. Once you have that combo on turn 5, Druid is less likely to deal with it, and that's what he's going for. And he has a Deathbite, he has an Inner Rage, he just need a patron.
Yeah.
If he needs to, he also have the Acolyte of Pen and Battle Rage to draw possibly. And here, as a Druid, you do not go face, and he didn't. Great.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those mistakes a lot of players make.
Uh-huh. Oh. Man. I think I'll just play Big Game Winner here. But then he'll just die to Deathbite.
Mhm.
So far looking pretty great for Kolento. He also enrage himself. Well, takes the damage so that his battle rage at worst possible scenario if he doesn't join the patron is still looking good. And Kucha does join to 4-drop. Man. You remember how we talked about the Azure Drakes and well, in this case, the Savage or Azure Drakes are kind of a bad choice for a rogue, and Azure Drake against Warrior might be actually worse.
Yeah.
When your opponent has a Death Bite in the deck.
I was gonna say like this game would probably be just game over if you drew Patron, but this is equally bad.
Equally bad,
Yeah.
yes, indeed.
Well, not equally, but almost as bad. Drawing 4 cards here, with
Wow.
the Battle Rage, 1 card with the Acolyte, and you're guaranteed yet another card with the Acolyte. It's almost just too many cards.
Mm-hmm. And too many armor as well, since you're not gonna have anything near a combo lethal on turn 9. Not with this board, not like this. So what do you do here? You just play a Zero Direct that's really slow. Do you want to swipe and clear this? Also not so very good. You're really just stuck in an awkward position, and
Yeah,
you you don't want to give any more cards to your opponent either. So
Okay.
wow.
Wow, look at that. So how many cards is that for? So oh wow, he's not even gonna give the he's not even gonna give the potential for Kucha to overdraw.
No.
So I guess the benefit here is that because Kolento has done all the card drawing from the Acolyte possible,
Mhm.
you're not as worried about clearing the board. But then again, if a patron comes up, if Kolento has patron in his hand, then that could just be game over. If he just goes like he runs his unstable ghoul into a minion that you play this turn.
Oh man. It just looks so bad for Kucha right now. I guess you will go swipe this just so that your opponent does not start with a 10 cards next turn.
Yeah. And so with this play, it just means that Emperor will be able to get on the board for free.
Oh yeah, and you do not have an answer to Emperor, unfortunately, not right now, unless you draw into second swipe. Which it didn't. I guess you have to just silence that. Which feels bad. Or, oh, whoa, he goes for lore.
I mean, at this point, nothing.
At this point, yes.
Like
At this
Kucha
point,
could
you have to
choose.
play for a win.
Kucha could choose like every card in his hand and basically every card in Kolento's hand, and I'm still not sure if he would win. Basically, the patrons and the Warsong commanders need to be the last 4 cards in Kolento's deck for Kolento to have, or for Kucha to have any sort of chance. This is kind of like the absolute god draw, the best draw possible without getting 4 patrons on turn 5.
Oh, man. You're nowhere near lethal as well, so wow. All those cards are gonna cost basically nothing.
This is such first world problems. Like I have too many good cards, but
Too many good cards, yes.
actually none of these cards deal with the Ancient of Lore completely perfectly.
Well, execute
Yeah,
Taskmaster does the job. You're
it
not
does.
really looking to play these cards that he has in his
Yeah,
hand. So a combo, any of the combo pieces.
I mean, like, okay, so Kucha at this point, I guess he could Ancient of War into Ancient of War. He would bait out one execute, then a second, then like the second Ancient of War would be hard to deal with, but still not impossible for Kolento.
Even if he has an Ancient War, I believe that will be actually lethal with
Yeah.
the Whirlwind execute. He has 2 Whirlwind effects. He has 6 minions total, so 7 minions. So 7 times 2 is 14 plus. Wow, just yes, that is more than enough to have lethal. Even if he twits down the Ancient War, which he doesn't have.
Keep in mind that Kolento's entire hand at this point costs 2 mana.
Mm-hmm.
So next turn,
Whatever he draws,
yeah,
he can play anything.
okay. I think that's going to be it. War Song Commander, Frothing Berserker. You have so many whirlwind effects.
Too many whirlwind effects. In fact, you will lose your you will lose your would you? Hang on, 1, 2, 3. I know you wouldn't, never mind.
Oh, here's another whirlwind effect that you can use. I would play that for BM.
That is a 21 damage just from whirlwind effects without.
Yeah. Well, actually, Kolento has to be a little worried about being 2 BM because he could theoretically, if he played the Fire War Axe now to overwrite the Death Spite, he could kill off his own
then
patron.
you lose the patron. Yeah, then you lose the Frothing Berserker. You're lethal.
Yeah, so that was pretty exciting there. Probably the fastest series that I've ever seen in TGT, at least. Kolento just taking 3 convincing wins in a row.